Welcome to the Tom Matt Show. You are walking through the front door of the retirement zone. And now, your host, Tom Matt.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Tom Matt Show. Thank you so much for joining us. Last week, Robert Bryce was back, energy expert from Austin, Texas. Called that one the flamethrower. That was not only very informative, but pretty hilarious, too, because Robert is just... Guys, Robert, I call him RB. People call him the general. He's the king when it comes to energy and what's happening in the world of, well, you just got to listen to the episode because he's got stats that just rock your world. And he just loves talking about all of these things. You have to become informed, just like we're going to do today with my guest, Darien Harris. Darien Harris and I have known each other for quite a while, actually, since I was working for the university when he was a player. Darien Harris is a former Spartan captain for the football team at Michigan State on the 2015 Big Ten championship team that reached the college football playoff. He is formerly the Michigan State football director of player engagement. Now he's the assistant AD for business and development and NIL strategy for MSU athletics. Big title for a big guy. He should be doing these things. During his 4-year career, Darien helped lead Michigan State to 4 bowl games, which I worked 3 of those. And so that was some fun times, collecting 15 tackles in those postseason contests, including tying a career high with 2 tackles for a loss, 2 yards, posting 8 stops overall in the 2015 college football playoff semifinal at the Cotton Bowl against, Alabama. Nobody, just one of those teams. Attended DeMatha Catholic High School, played for Bill McGregor. Following his Spartan career, he went to the Canadian Football League. The guy's a player. He's a smart dude, too. Graduated with a bachelor's degree in 2015 from Michigan State, and he's got his master's degree in marketing from Michigan State. Got that in 2019. He's extensive broadcast experience. That's why he's on the radio program, serving as a frequent contributor on several radio and television shows. You'll see this guy on national TV someday, if he's not an AD somewhere. He might be an AD somewhere, and he may be a host somewhere for like CBS or Fox or whomever. Probably Fox, since, they're tied in with the Big Ten. But whatever, Big Ten Network, they know when they find talent. I want to welcome back to the radio program. Let's call on this one, Go Green, Go White. Since we're recording right before the start of football season, we can talk about all the good things that are happening at the university. I want to welcome back my friend, Darien Harris. Darien, thank you so much, buddy.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Glad to be on.
My pleasure. Nice to see you. Let's get right into it. We start with This Is Your Life. You've got a young family. You're doing really well over there at the university, continuing to grow and prosper. Congratulations on everything you've done. I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, and you've been around and talking about NIL. We're going to talk about that extensively today and how we can continue to promote and educate people on how we can do this correctly. There's just so much, it's just confusing, and there's just so much misinformation, disinformation. Having you on, I appreciate that. But let's talk about family first, get you warmed up. Go right ahead. Take a few minutes and talk about your wife and you're not a baby anymore. You got
no, not a baby anymore. No.
Go right ahead, man.
Our daughter Naomi turned 3 last month, and so
wow,
we have 3 going on 13-year-old. We feel like who's absolutely running our world, but it's a blast. We're having a blast. As young parents all trying to figure this thing out. And, what makes it even more fun is now a lot of my former teammates have kids. And so, at Naomi's 3rd birthday party, Javon Ringer's pulling up with his daughter and Donovan Clark with his 4-month-old. And it's just exciting times for all of us to watch us now be in this new stage of life. As you mentioned, you're going through all the times of football, and it just – we recall back to what we were doing, 10 years ago at this time was in camp and grinding and getting ready for a season and, bashing each other's heads in and getting ready for the school year and college and having a blast and doing all those things. And now have flipped the script and are, of course, alive and thriving in our careers, but more importantly than that, just being family men, being what we were aspiring to be while we were at Michigan State. I think those feelings were dormant, and we didn't outwardly talk about them because we were again, too busy trying to be the big man on campus and the football players and all that. But deep down, we all wanted to be one day husbands and fathers, and for us to have that opportunity to be able to live that experience now. And a lot of us have girls. A lot of us have girls where we're living this dream of being a girl dad, which is just, it's absolutely amazing. And every day is something new, but it's all a blessing. And I literally, like, there's no bad days. Like, there's just no bad days. Can't wait to get home, run around with Naomi. It's an absolute blast.
So great, man. And, being a girl dad myself, I can totally empathize with what you're saying. I got a question about how is Javon Ringer doing? He was always, all you guys were really kind to the support staff on the sidelines when I was working football. And Javon was he was just awesome. And then he came back he was a coach for a cup of coffee for a little while. What's he doing now, and how is he?
Yeah, he's great. He's working in our recruiting department with football. So he'd gone to Toledo for a few years, and now he's back and working in recruiting, which is just awesome to have him around. He's one of those guys that I looked up to prior to getting to Michigan State. So I didn't get an opportunity to play with him. But being from the East Coast and not being as familiar with the Big Ten as, of course, I was once I got here, there's just certain names of players that you knew, and Javon was one of them. So for things to come full circle, for us to be incredibly close, he's got 2 kids. We're going to go to his son's first birthday party in a couple weeks. Like, it's tremendous, again, to watch where we were, at this time a decade ago. He was working out with us. He would come in the off season and blow us out of the water in drills when he was on break from the NFL. And to have him around the program and to have a Hall of Famer around you, you just, you can't beat that.
I remember one time, you can reflect on this because it wasn't your time there, but when Javon came off the field one time during a game, and he had such a heart. I mean, the guy's all beat up. He's the toughest guy, one of the toughest guys I've ever seen. And he had his contact got knocked out of his eye. And I mean, he was so focused on getting that thing fixed with the trainers. They fixed it right on the sideline. And I mean, the guy didn't miss a beat and ran right back in there and got right back to work. I mean, the guy is just a consummate black belt in karate. I mean, the guy was just amazing. And just, I'd love to talk to him some more. Darquez Denard, we saw him last fall at your event that you had behind I Am West and all of those guys. It's always nice. And if people are around that are going to the football games, season ticket holders, whatever, you should go around campus, get there a little earlier and meet some of these former players because they are there, especially on like homecoming games, early season games, and go with that because they're always there and they're very approachable. And Darquez was one of our favorites too. We can have all kinds of talks about him. All right. Set this up, Darren, because I want to, we're going to talk football, of course, your perspective, because you worked the green and white game with the new coaching staff. And you got a minute and a half to go before we go to break here. Set this up and then set up and tell about NIL and the snapshot that we can discuss here going through this episode. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, for sure. It's exciting times around the program with the new staff and, fall camp's going on now and they're gearing up for the season, of course. And then this NIL thing that everybody's trying to figure out, right? It's complicated and confusing, but it also isn't at the same time. It just takes a little bit of guidance, I would say, just to step back and get just break it down a little bit, which we'll be able to do. But I love talking about it because I think it's a fascinating, it's just a fascinating part of the landscape, and I'm glad to work in it each day.
What about the football team? What do you see coming? You got 30 seconds. Give me 30-second snapshot, and we'll come back. We'll continue that thread.
Yeah, just new life. New life has been blown into the program. And you can tell that at practices. You can tell that we're talking to the players. There's excitement. There's excitement in the process. And that's what sports is. That's what football is. It's a process. And, nobody's asking for a 12-win regular season overnight. But the process and the steps to get to a championship caliber program are definitely there. And I'm looking forward again to watching them compete this year.
Perfect. Thank you. And we'll talk more about all of this because we have so many fans all over the country that listen to the podcast and the radio program broadcasted all over the Midwest on the Michigan Talk Network. My guest today, everybody, Darien Harris, my bud from Michigan State, calling this one Go Green, Go White. Going to have all kinds of good information. If you want to know more about NIL and you want to know more about the Spartan football team, stick around because we will be talking about that. Tom Matt Show, my guest today, Darien Harris.
This segment of the Tom Matz Show is brought to you in part by The Source of Light and Power by band leader Arc of All and broadcaster Mitch Anderson. Hear the sound that is endorsed by Odyssey headphones, linear tube audio, RME converters, and Peluso microphones at sourceoflightandpower.com.
Welcome to the Tom Matz Show.
The second segment of the Tom Matz Show is sponsored by Ameriprise Financial and Craig Stiles. He is our Ameriprise Financial advisor. As I say every show, he is our talent for the financial fitness episodes that we host and subject matter expert par excellence. And we put all of our retirement zone savings with Craig Stiles because I don't want to worry about any of that stuff. And I hope that you do the same thing, because with his help, he can help you plan for the life you want today and well into the future, like he's doing for Sandy and I. It's really a wonderful feeling to know that we have someone like a Craig Stiles that can manage these things, take care of business, very smart. He created Desideri Analytics, which is his proprietary algorithm, which can make your life be brilliant, as they like to say. Desideri is a very important proprietary algorithm. He actually allowed a student friend of mine and ours, that Anya Gerstenberg, to do her senior cognate at Michigan State, got a 4 on that. And so that means that Desideri is for real. And it was very nice of Craig to do that. He's that kind of guy, and that's why you want to give him a call, 1-800-528-1355. His local number is 517-483-4893. Email craig.stiles@ampf.com, craig.stiles@ampf.com. Easiest way to get a hold of our sponsors, everybody, is just go to our homepage at tommattshow.com. Bottom of that homepage, the very first page that you'll come to, is our sponsors and friends that we support. And please just click on through, because it'll take you right to their websites, which is very easy. Craig's office, his new office, is located at 2651 Coolidge Road, Suite 103, East Lansing, Michigan, 48823. Here are stations that are in and out of the network, carry us. Broadcast radio is crazy, and it's great to be on broadcast and on syndication, WGHN 92.1, thanks to Will Tiemann and Wendy Hart. We're the first to ever put us on broadcast radio, Grand Haven, Michigan. So happy to be there. The flagship of the Michigan Talk Network is WJIM 1240 in Lansing. Thanks to Steve and Ivy Gruber, who continue to carry us on the syndication of the Michigan Talk Network. Very, very grateful for that. WJRW 1340 in AM in Grand Rapids carried us for a long time. WKLQ 1490 Muskegon Whitehall, WYPV FM 94.5 in Mackinac City. And of course, at Michigan State University, AM 870 News Talk, WKAR, and simulcast 102.3 FM Sundays at 5 p.m. Been on that slot for a long time. Again, I want to thank Steve and Ivy Gruber for carrying us on the Michigan Talk Network. And we have 4 books on that thing called Amazon. Please go check those out and let us know what you think. All right, I guess today, my buddy Darien Harris, I liked what he said about the process, but I called this one Go Green, Go White. And so we'll start off first, Darren, talking football. And you talked about new life in the program, which is awesome. And being season ticket holders, we're all very anxious to get over there and hang out with you guys and see what's going on with the new program. It's a very exciting time. Let's start at the beginning. The hiring of the new coach. We had kind of a rough year last year, but that's all in the past. Let's talk about the future. We cannot do diddly crap about the past. Let's talk about the future and how you feel about it. You were at the green and white game. Start at the beginning, please.
Yeah, I feel great. From the moment Coach Smith's got here, he's been just everything I think that we've been looking for in the head coach, and brought a staff with him that understands the landscape, understand what it means to compete at a high level, understands having a rivalry within the state. That's very important, of course, to the fan base and the alumni base. And it's just, again, it's been great to get to know this entire staff and get to really get a sense and feel for, again, their process, what they believe in, how they want to build this program up. It's been awesome to see them also, embrace what we've done here from a tradition standpoint, embrace what we have from an alumni standpoint. Coach Rossi, D coordinator, mentioned it last week. He said we had our Spartan Dog Con, our big alumni engagement reunion that we do every summer. And first was really appreciative of this staff allowing us to continue to have that. And then their reaction after it was they were excited and really had a great time. And then for Coach Rossi to say that he'd never been around a more engaging alumni base in terms of former players, like it's a lot at times, right? Because as you mentioned, if you're around at games and whether it's homecoming, home games, whatever, you're going to see a lot of former players walking around, and that's great. But former players also want to know, one, how they can help, of course, but they also like access to the program, want to know how they can be around. And that can be a lot, honestly. But for this staff, again, to be engaging with them and to, humbly invite them in and really take a step back and say, hey, this is you all's home. And we're just hoping to do it justice. Like, that means something. And I think that that's resonated well with the former players, who I always feel are the backbone of the program, and your best, they're your best recruiters. They're your best propagandists. They're anything you can think of. That's what former players are going to do. So just, it's been a well-rounded experience getting to know this new staff and Coach Smith. And again, football, we'll get to that and we'll see what they can do on the field. And, we're all here to help in any way. But at least for the first 8 months, it's been the right move for sure.
You got to sell the program. I mean, you got to sell the program. And I like you talking about the Spartan Dogs and what that's all about. Explain that a little bit, what that is, if people aren't aware, Darien. Because it takes a lot to put these events together. And that's one of the things that you do and your staff does, is you coordinate a lot of events. We'll talk about the event that when I saw you in the spring here, when we get out of break here, we got a few minutes to go before we get there. But talk about the Spartan Dogs and the creation and what exactly is it?
Yeah, Spartan Dogs has been around since the 80s. It was our way as current players to try to kind of formulate our own fraternity. Was how it was always explained to me. And it's just something that's transcended eras and has really created, again, this bond of former players that I believe nobody else in the country has. And one thing that was really important to the entire program, and including the last staff, which definitely need to give them credit for this, was making sure that former players always felt welcome in the building and around the program. It was something that had been a little lost for them. There was a lot of former players that felt like they couldn't quite come home, and even though it was always talked about as like, hey, East Lansing, Michigan State is always going to be a home for you as a former player, as a Spartan Dog, but a lot of them didn't feel that way. And so one of my main tasks, when I first was hired back, was really taking over that alumni engagement and figuring out how we could embrace and engage our former players to make them feel welcome. So we started Spartan Dog Con 4 years ago. So this was 2020 or 3 years ago. 2021 was the first one coming out of COVID. And it's the last weekend in July, have it every summer, where we invite all former players to come in and essentially have what we call a Spartan Dog Conference, where you come in as former players. We do our golf outing on Friday. And then Saturday, you're around the facility, you're helping us recruit, but you're learning about the program. You're learning offensive defense philosophy, head coaching philosophy. We have a keynote speaker every year. Again, you're around the current players, you're around the recruits. We're doing the Spartan walk. We're taking pictures. We do dinners. We want to make sure, again, that for a weekend, you can essentially live like a college student athlete again. Relive your glory days if you want to. And it's just become an awesome event. We have over 100 former players that come in every year for it. This was Spartan Dog Con 4, which is it's amazing to think that this is the 4th year of it. And it was thankful that this staff, again, allowed us to have it.
Very, very well said. And when we come back, everybody, I have a question for Darien about why the older players didn't feel welcome and how his impact with Spartan Dog Con is really making that change. And I want to ask him that question as soon as we come back from break. Darien Harris, MSU Athletics, calling this one Go Green, Go White. This is the Tom Matt Show.
Thank you again to our Segment 2 sponsor, Craig Stiles of Ameriprise Financial. For more information on services provided by Craig, please visit ameripriseadvisors.com/craig.stiles or by calling 517-483-4893. You're tuned in to the Tom Matt Show.
Welcome to the Tom Matt Show.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Tom Matt Show. Third segment is sponsored by Jamie, White Law. They're the bomb. They're awesome. We can trust all of our sponsors. All 3 of our sponsors are great people. White Law is where justice meets compassion. Jamie White is a huge donor to Michigan State University. He's a dual graduate, his undergrad and his law degree from Michigan State University, the College of Law over there. That's why there's such huge proponents. Brock Fletcher's the same way. All of our sponsors are tied to the university in some way, and they're always willing to help. And that's the whole point. That's why you want to solicit and go get some help. Reach out to me if you got a question. I have people call me and ask me, hey, can you ask Jamie White a question? And he will take my call anytime, and I can ask him. And if you didn't get a chance to hear that very first episode when he became a sponsor, he talked about his life and why he became an attorney, you need to go check that one out on our website, TomMattShow.com. White Law is your advocate in times of need. They are here to listen, support, fight for what you deserve. That's why I love doing these promo spots for White Law, because they are the best. Contact White Law today for your free consultation. Did I say free? Free consultation. WhiteLawPLLC.com. WhiteLawPLLC.com. Sweet website. I mean, really well done. Very, very professional. Very easy to navigate. Or you can call this famous number, 517-777-9785. I say that because Jamie not only is a sponsor of the radio program, but he's also a sponsor for the Mad Dog Minutes that we put up on our YouTube channel with David DeMarco. And you'll see that phone number every time you watch a Mad Dog Minute. And a lot of people are starting to really find that. Been doing it for a little while now, and it's going very, very well. So those of you out there that know Jamie, David DeMarco, people like a Darien Harris, this is the spot you want to be. Okay, back to the show. Darien Harris, my guest today, everybody, calling this episode Go Green, Go White. I'm going to get a subtitle of the process from Darien. He's just said that in the first segment. Darien, I wanted to ask you one more quick question about the SpartanDog.com thing and the Spartan Dogs. You've had that going since the 80s, and you're kind of explaining it. It's really sweet what you guys do with this fraternity-like atmosphere with the former players. Why was it that some of the former players from back in the day, perhaps, didn't feel welcomed at the university? Do you have any snapshot that you'd like to share with that, and why things have changed since you're in charge of all that now?
Yeah, I just think it's the ability to facilitate opportunities and the resources, from the outside. And once you become a former player, I've obviously been in that case. I'm a former player, and was one for 4 years out of playing before I was hired back. Like, you think that the resources that you had as a player are always going to be available. There's something, again, in the back of your head that's like, I'm going to always get the same access to what I had while I was a player. And that's just not true. And so, because it's impossible, how could you, right? The resources that are here are for the current players. That's why you now are a former player. But when you get recruited and when you're here, we talk about 4 for 40, a 4-year decision for the next 40 years of your life. And this will always be home. And, all that stuff is true, but you have to have people that can then facilitate those opportunities. It's the exact same reason why I wanted to be hired back in a role of player development, of player engagement, because I was the only one in my class that did an internship, and it wasn't for lack of want to, it was just for a lack of, there wasn't anybody to facilitate it, right? So it's the same thing with alumni engagement. It wasn't that the door was closed, there was just nobody on staff to facilitate alumni and to field their calls and to set up events and things like that. So that's just something that we had to create. And once you create it, then you realize it doesn't take the resources away from the current program. It actually enhances the current program, and you can go forward from there. And so I think that's is something that just it's in all kind of avenues and different business ventures. Is when you create a department or you have somebody that can do something that hasn't been done before, then opportunities seem to appear out of nowhere, like a Spartan Dog Con or like our former players' day at spring ball, spring practice, or just something very simple as all former players can come to practice as long as they, call ahead of time and get on the guest list, right? Well, you got to have somebody to field those calls at the end of the day. And so now that we have somebody to do that, now multiple people working on that, now there's this welcoming feeling where I don't think it wasn't there in the past. It just was, once you don't know who to call, or there's changeover of coaches, or you just feel disconnected, your immediate, kind of knee-jerk reaction is, oh, I'm just not welcome around anymore, which is not true at all.
Yeah, you want to be wanted. People want to be part of the group, and what you're saying is you needed an ambassador to put the welcome mat out. And without having that point person like you, if you don't have that point person, then it's no hard feelings. It's just, you just don't have a point person. So if you don't have a point guard, right? If you don't have a good quarterback, let's talk X's and O's if we're talking about, quarterbacking and point guards and everything. We have a very talented young man coming in this year. What is your impression? I have not done much research with Childs, I believe is his name. And can you talk about him a little bit? I'm sure he was a very nice pickup by the new coaching staff. Talk about him a little bit, would you please?
Yeah, Aiden Childs, our QB1, fantastic kid. Was with Oregon, was at Oregon State with this staff, was playing every third series last year, so he has some game experience. Coach Smith mentioned that this week, I believe on the Jim Rome show, where he was saying, hey, Aiden wasn't playing in garbage time. He was playing with the game on the line. So he's got experience. This will be his first full year as a starter. When you're an athlete, right, you don't want people making excuses for you. So I'm not going to make excuses or anything for him. But the kid is only 18 years old. He'll be 19 next month. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how he grows and progresses through the program. And what he's capable of is big things and, maybe some things that we haven't seen before here, honestly, if he continues on a trajectory that we feel like he has the capability of doing. And so there's a lot of excitement around Aiden, as there should be, a lot of expectations as he understands, but that's what it means to be quarterback at Michigan State. We have a long, rich tradition that I think people overlook a lot of times of quarterbacking play. Obviously what Connor Cook did here was amazing, but Kirk Cousins is going to retire as a top 5 earner in the history of the NFL, right? Nick Foles just retired today, ironically, right? He started off as a Spartan. Brian Hoyer and is still playing. Drew Stanton just finally retired, and he may go back, knowing him. We're talking about decade-long careers for Michigan State quarterbacks. Brian Lewerke is still playing professionally. Rocky Lombardi's in camp with the Cincinnati Bengals. There is a rich tradition in history. And then you go back to Tony Banks. And of course, back prior to that, there is a rich tradition when it comes to quarterbacking here at Michigan State. And Aiden falls a line right there as well. The list goes on.
Interesting you bring that up. You know who he reminded me of, and I've just, from my time working out there, was the kid from, he was at Indiana first, and then he went to the University of Washington, Pennick, and tall, lanky kid. And like you say, an 18-year-old, 19-year-old. I mean, the maturation process for these young adults, by the time they get through college, by the time they've gone through, it's an amazing transformation. And I'll leave it there because I got to take this thing through break, Darien, and let me reset this thing. I mean, that's the guy he reminds me of. He's a tall, gunslinger kind of guy. It looks like he can run like crazy, and you got to protect him. So we'll see how that goes. We'll talk more football when we come back from break, everybody. Again, let me reset. Darien Harris is here. Very happy that he could take the time out of his busy schedule. We got lucky. We got lucky to get Darien at the right time, because if I talk to him in 2 weeks, there's no way. I mean, so we want to try to promote what we're doing good here. We will be talking more NIL action. We'll talk some transfer portal things that are happening. Just educating the public on what's happening at the university, because we're here to support and not tear down, go green, go white, Michigan State University. It's our place, and as Spartans, we know what we're doing here, and we're going to progress, and we're going to do some good things. Go green, go white is today's title. Imagine that to the Tom Matt Show.
Thank you again to our segment 3 sponsor, White Law PLLC, where justice meets compassion. White Law is your advocate in times of need. We are here to listen, support, and fight for what you deserve. Contact White Law today for your free consultation. Visit us at whitelawpllc.com or call 517-777-9785. This is the Tom Matt Show.
Welcome to the Tom Matt Show.
Fourth segment of the Tom Matt Show is sponsored by a guy that I mentioned his name earlier, Brock. Full disclosure, Brock Fletcher helped my family, Sandy and I, get rid of Big Household. And it was a tough decision on that one, because we built that house from dirt and lived in that home for 20 years. It was a beautiful, wonderful opportunity and great place to raise our children. But then it became too big. And so, like many people, as we grow older as you're growing older, when you get your children are coming up, like my guest today, Darien Harris is talking about his daughter, Naomi. She's 3 going on 13. I remember when she was born. I mean, these things happen. That's why you need good realtors to help you because they know what they're doing. Brock spends thousands of dollars on marketing before he ever gets your business because he wants to do the best job for you. You can trust Brock. He helped us sell Big House Holt, as I've said this many, many times, and he helped us buy through Mike Dedman. Mikey, you're the best. Mike Dedman was our buyer's agent for Little House Lansing, where we are recording this episode today with Darien. Here are some numbers. Brock Fletcher, 517-853-6408. The cell phone number for Brock. Text him, leave him a voicemail, whatever you want. He will return your call. I'll be seeing Brock here pretty soon. We're going to a outreach event with him here next week. So I'll be talking to him for sure. We talk all the time. 517-303-3262. Let me say that one more time. 517-303-3262. Huge Spartan fan, huge donor to the university. He's got plenty of players on his staff that he's training right now in the real estate business. So he's a big supporter of continuing education, non-traditional education. His website is kwsellingteam.com, kwsellingteam.com. And they like to say, sell your home without the hassles. I can absolutely testify to that. That's what happened with us. Boom, boom. He hit the numbers and the way we went. Great guy. Listen to the Reality of Real Estate on our website where we have all of Brock's episodes. There's I don't even know, 15, 20 of them. And you can get all kinds of good free information. Just go to the website, TomMattShow.com. Any of the big podcast aggregators out there, we're on them all. A lot of people like Spotify. iTunes is cool. Google Play is great, but Spotify seems to get a lot of action from us. So good for you. Go get it, and it's away you go. My guest today is Darien Harris, calling this one "Go Green, Go White." The process. We're just talking about Aiden Childs, new quarterback for Michigan State University. Darien, you gotta have a good quarterback in college football nowadays. I mean, if you don't have that, but I have learned, and you being a former defensive player, what I have learned being around the program for 25 years. 20 years working games, that you win championships with defense. I mean, we're in the Big Ten, baby, and the Big Ten is like a lot bigger now. And there's some good teams in the Big Ten. I'm like, holy crap, man! What do we got? 18 teams now with those teams from the West Coast. Talk about defense at Michigan State. We talked a little bit about offense. What are you seeing on defense?
Defense, I've been excited. What Coach Rossi's brought is really excited me. That's where I spend most of my time in practice, watching that side of the ball. Touchdowns are cool. Aiden's slinging it. That's a lot of fun. Nate's running the rock, but I want to see some defense. And the best part about it right now, competition. There's competition out there where we got to see who's going to run out there with the ones when we kick off against FAU. And that's what breeds good teams, is when you have depth, when you have competition, you can make things happen. So, scheme is scheme. I like the scheme, and I like what he's brought to the table. And anybody that wants to see it, you can turn on some Minnesota tape. But what I really like is how the guys are out there competing, how Coach Rossi has them competing, and how he said, he's going to make the system fit the players. So who we have, what our strengths are, he's going to make sure that what he's calling fits the guys.
I have seen this happen in the past. I remember when at the University of Michigan, no offense to our Spartan fans out there, because if they're in the Big Ten, I'm going to support them, although they are our rival. But I remember when Rich Rodriguez came into the University of Michigan years ago, and it just felt like he took those players that he had and he tried to force them into his system, and it just didn't work out. So when you're talking about taking the players that you have and making them better through the new program, I think that is it perhaps maybe because this coaching staff is a younger staff, they're not so fixed on their ways of doing things. It's like, I've won this way so many years and I know everything about football. Well, nowadays you got these athletes are different. I mean, these college students, and I'm around them every day. I coach college students all the time on their professional attitudes and where they're going with their careers. And It's way different, Darien. So comment on that, please. What, the younger staff that you have.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, but I just think at some point, like coaches universally realize like we're either going to have to kind of get out of this or move on to the pros, or we're just going to have to adapt. I mean, look, Nick Saban was the best adapter in college, and obviously he's not. He was in the spring chicken, but he was very adamant on if you don't adapt, you'll get left behind. And so understanding that, as you mentioned, the landscape is different, the players are different, the way they learn is different, the way they take in information is different. Sometimes I would say to their detriment. I'm not that much older than them, but I do, of course, am in tune with where they're getting their info from and how they're learning. But if you don't adapt to them and meet them where they are, you're not going to have success. And the other thing, of course, is with this portal and all that. Look, we have about 60 new players on the team. I'm out there with a roster every day trying to figure out who everybody is, and I'm around the program every day. So, there's new guys out there that's coming from new systems. Some of these players that we're expecting to contribute this year are on their third school, which means their third coaching staff, their third system. And these are not, I know we're getting close to calling this professional ball, but it's not quite there yet. And especially in terms of knowledge of the game and knowing the game, to expect for somebody to just come in and master a playbook overnight, like you are expected to do in the NFL, that's just not reality. And so you got to teach them in ways that they understand. You got to teach them in ways that they can digest the information. And to me, that's always been a separator. Like talent is talent. There's, of course, going to be teams that are more talented. I do believe that you have to have, pretty close to as good talent as your opponent to compete. But that knowledge of the game, football IQ, that's what I talked about the past couple of years with my former teammates. When we watch games, we would say, we're missing that. And that's just football 101. That's just basic stuff. Second and long, every team's going to do this. First and 10, P and 10, third and medium, whatever. Some teams, it's like, hey, Ohio State, when they go 5 right, they're going to run that QB power. It's been happening for years. How do you not know that? Corner, crack, replace. If your receiver goes in, you now got the edge. You got to come up and make that tackle. How do you not know that? So a lot of it is football IQ, but you got to get there at some point. Like we didn't walk into Michigan State just knowing everything. We learned over time, and we also didn't have that many distractions as they do now. So yeah, I do believe being a younger staff helps, but I just think universally, you have to be able to adapt to fit your players.
So well put. Having a good football IQ is something that is coming along, and now these young players. I mean, some of the I see it with our grandchildren. Darien, our granddaughter, she's 11 years old. She's a left-handed softball pitcher, and she's in Wisconsin. They get so much of this intense private training now. It is crazy. Take a minute to talk about that. If you're talking to kids that are coming up, we got a minute to go before we go to break. But how important is that? The conditioning process, all of that feeds into becoming with a high football IQ.
Yeah, I'm on they call it the NFL College Administrators Committee, and we meet quarterly. And that was a question that literally came up last month, which is how do the NFL was asking us at colleges. We have, myself, we have Clemson on there, Notre Dame, BYU, Oregon, some other schools. Like, how do you feel about private training? And it's like quarterbacks for sure. That's one thing where you expect that. Every quarterback's probably going to have a trainer. But now, every position has a specialized trainer, especially receivers. There's agility and foot specialists, and there's all these people out there. And hey, extra work is great, right? What you don't want to see is you don't want to see a trend of guys coming in hurt because they did something that was away from the program. That's always the fear. That's a fear that coaches have. That's a fear that especially strength staff and athletic trainers have. But at the same time, these trainers, they have a lot of influence on where these young athletes, especially in high school, end up going to college. I have connections with a lot of our trainers in the area because they sometimes have more influence than the high school coaches in this day and age. I
totally agree. And being a personal trainer myself for 14 years, I totally get that. And if you're in their ear and you're talking to them all the time, you spend a lot of time with them. They have a very limited amount of time. We haven't even had a chance to talk about that. We come back from break, everybody. We're talking to Darien Harris, calling this one Go Green, Go White. But we're going to talk NIL, and we're going to talk transfer portal exclusively in the next segment. You're listening to The Tom Matt Show.
Thank you again to our segment 4 sponsor, Brock Fletcher, real estate agent at the selling team with Keller Williams Realty. For more information on services provided by Brock, please call his personal cell phone at 517-303-3262 or by emailing Brock at kwsellingteam.com. This is the Tom Matt Show.
Welcome to the Tom Matt Show.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Tom Matt Show. Catching us on some of our broadcast stations and on our podcast. Segment 5 is always the spot where you can get our refreshed website info, tommattshow.com. You got a message, you got something, go to the contact box, send us a note, goes right to Sandy's email. Boom, boom, boom. She'll make sure I get it. Always. She's on top of that stuff. Darien, how would you like people to connect with you? And please promote whatever you'd like as far as camps, as far as helping kids, as far as the process just to be a student at Michigan State. Go right ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm easy to find on really all social media. That's where I live most of my life. I don't know if that's good or bad, but LinkedIn, yeah, just Darien Harris on LinkedIn. And then Twitter X, it's Darien A. Harris. So you can find me on either of those platforms, and our NIL page, msuspartans.com/evergreen. So that gives a big, nice overview of what we have from an NIL standpoint here at Michigan State. And that's where I'm living now. I'm on social media just because that's kind of the nature of the NIL work I do, is understanding, influencer marketing trends and things of that nature, and just across the landscape of college athletics, being knowledgeable of what's going on. And then, if that then translates to the NIL world.
Where do you see yourself? This is a question I haven't told you anything about any of this, but where do you see yourself in the future, 10, 15, 20 years from now? What would you like to be doing? Or do you want to do some coaching? Do you want to stay in the media? Do you want to stay in the athletic department? What are some of the things that Darien Harris is aspiring to do? Yeah,
I plan to be in the pro space, to make a transition to pro sports at some point. Ultimately be a president and CEO of a professional sports team, but definitely see myself in the front office of a pro sports franchise in the next decade.
That is awesome. What a great goal to have with you. I have a program that I work with when I talk to people and I coach them. When I see you in person, I'll talk to you about this. It's just a program that I developed that I know works. It's worked for me. It's worked for many people that I've helped with this, with goals. And it's just, it works. But we'll talk about that another time. Let's talk exclusively right now in this segment about NIL and the transfer portal, mostly NIL, because when I saw you, Sandy and I saw you at that event this past spring at the renovated football building, which is unbelievable. And you gave us that nice tour. And I was thank you for doing that, by the way, and showed us around the new building. The students that we had with us were so impressed with everything. The girls were just over the moon, but you were so kind to share us. And we met a lot of the students, a lot of the soccer, the female students that were there, helping them understand, hey, if we can help you with this, with the NIL, there are other ways within NIL, because people told me you can't do it that way. And we're small. I mean, our radio program is small, but we can help you in kind with maybe some exposure, maybe some airtime. I mean, each of our episodes is worth over $1,000 an episode. And I was kind of amazed that you had entrepreneurs at the event that owned hotels, and they were doing the same thing with in-kind trades. So if we have possible NIL contributors, talk about all of that, because it's a very wide area that you can go into. So go ahead and sell it for us. Would you please tell us what they can expect and what maybe they can help? Yeah,
I just think from the landscape of a business, local business, small business, even up to the statewide national brands, there was kind of a stigma put on, and there's a lot of stigmas put on NFL and NIL that are negative. One of the ones that pertains to what we like to call the pure side of NIL, which is just that brand deal, that deal between a student athlete and a business or a brand, where there's a quid pro quo where they have to do something to promote the brand and in exchange receive what some sort of compensation. Is that compensation only meant money, right? And let alone meant like astronomical dollars, because that's what everybody was seeing in the news. And that's just not the case. In-kind transactions are a huge part of NIL, and something that all student athletes, I know for a fact, are looking for. Because look, all student athletes also aren't created equal, and that's something I think that gets overlooked. Also, was on a panel and had a conversation about this recently. The in terms of the student athlete experience, from the standpoint of a football player to a non-revenue sports student athlete is totally different. But everybody loops them into the same category. Now, when it comes to NIL, every student athlete receives the exact same education, the exact same opportunities. It doesn't matter if you're the quarterback or you're anybody else, you receive the same level of resource. And that's something that's always been important to me. But from a team-to-team standpoint, it's just naturally not going to be the case. Just like scholarship levels aren't the same. There's 85 scholarships on football. I know those numbers are going up, and that's not anything that you have to discuss right now. You get into that when it passes through. But not every sport, every athlete's on a full ride scholarship, and so we have student athletes that weren't even considering going to college that decided to attend Michigan State that are paying their own way, but wanted to come to Michigan State because they wanted to be a student athlete. I think that's powerful, right? Because they're not here on scholarship. They're still paying their own way, but we got a great student and a great student athlete here because they wanted to still compete, be on a team, and live that experience. So a way to support them is through NIL. If you're the local coffee shop, a latte a week goes a long way. Local pizza shop, having the whatever team in for some pizza a week, one day a week goes a long way. And so just getting businesses to understand that it's not about the 5, 6, 7-figure dollar deal out there. Those are great. And if you have the resources to do that and you think it's going to be a benefit to your business, we're absolutely saying, please do that. We're not turning those away. But we know that that's not always the case for every business, especially every local business. And you don't have to have that level of capital and level of resources to be able to get involved with NIL.
Well, that's very important. I'm glad you shared all of that because there are many, many businesses that can do in-kind trades and simple things. Just don't think because you see all these headlines, everybody, you see these $1 million deals, you see this. It's not like that at all. And it was very interesting when we went to that event over at the football building. It was, again, another well-done event, Darien. Kudos to you for doing all of that. But it's good to meet the non-revenue sport athletes because they put in just as much time, if not more, into their academics, into their athleticism, into everything, and they need to get some love. That's all we're talking about here with the NIL. So the in-kind trades could potentially work to a business's benefit, and we're there to help too. I mean, that's why we have you on the show to explain these kinds of things. What is the competition like across the country that you've seen? You've been very, very active in NIL engagement across the country. I looked at that on your LinkedIn profile where you got almost 5,000 followers on there. I mean, that's quite a robust profile. What have you seen across the country? Who's doing what? Who's ahead? Who's not? And I know everybody tries to copy each other because you want to find the winning formula. What are some of the winning attributes to having a strong NIL program to attract our young athletes?
Yeah, it's definitely competitive. It's probably the most competitive piece of the landscape that's out there right now. It was for a time facilities, and then prior to that, maybe it was equipment or staffing or whatever. Now it's just straight up NIL. And we're extremely competitive, but we're competing on a daily basis, just like we're doing in anything else. We did win the Best Institutional Program Award in 2023 at the National NIL Awards. They don't let you go back to back. So Cincinnati, shout out to Cincinnati, won this year, but we had a strong presence down in Atlanta at the event. I took 6 student athletes with us, and we had a phenomenal time. Everything is a competition when it comes to NIL. Opportunities across the landscape and just across all sports. This whole collective situation, which could be a whole show on its own, honestly. Resources, brand development, marketing, influencer marketing strategy, social media strategy, financial literacy is a huge one. It's just competition across the board. But I love that because I'm looking for ways to compete every day. I've done, we did personality assessments recently and some team building, which was great. And, what came out of it was nothing that was new to me, but it was that I look for ways to compete in everything I do because I'm no longer competing within a sport. But now I'm competing within the landscape of how do we have and how can we deliver the best resources for all 700 of our student athletes, 23 of our varsity sports, without having this robust budget, right? They're past couple of years, we didn't have an NIL budget. So the event that you came to, we did that with no budget, right? The NIL celebration, we did that with no budget. Sponsored, but no budget. There's a big difference, as sure as you know, is getting something sponsored versus having a budget. Now going forward, because we've shown results, we've gotten Spartan Fund behind it. Now we're slowly and steadily growing our budget. But again, it's not like there's a robust amount of resources for us to be, bringing in industry experts every week and flying student athletes to different seminars and sessions. We're doing a lot of what we're doing in-house and seeing an incredible success to the point of 500 to upwards of 1,000% or more increases in some of our student athletes' social media followings, which is then leading to them securing deals at a national level.
There are many components that go into this. Darien, I need a less than a minute takeaway from this latest episode with us. Been a great one. What would your takeaway be from this episode of the Tom Matt Show? Oh man, it's great to be a Spartan. That's what I always go to. From being a Spartan Dog Con to being around the staff to the opportunity I have right now to work with all of our student athletes. We just ran a major financial literacy session for women's soccer, volleyball, field hockey, the dance team last week. I just met with a cross-country runner 5 minutes before I jumped on with here. It's just amazing to be a Spartan, and I'm thankful every day that I get to wake up and be in East Lansing. Beautiful. Nice close. Thank you for doing that. That's Darien Harris. Called this one Go Green, Go White. We're going to wrap this bad boy. If our show fits your business or group's mission, got questions on NIL, send us a note. I can put you in touch with Darien. Sponsorships are available for the radio program on a limited basis. Always remember, before you can share love with others, you must love yourself first. Thanks again to Darien Harris, Sandy Matt, Craig Stiles, Brock Fletcher, Jamie White, our sponsors. We will talk to you next weekend, everybody. Have a great week. Go out and ignite your life. Lastly, I'd like to say thank you to Mitch Anderson and Vanessa for doing what they do on our production side. Tom Matt Show is a production of Boomers Rock Media. We want to bring your story to life. Thank you so much for listening. We are out.
The Tom Matt Show is produced by Mitch Anderson of Black Circle Studios. Original music from the Source of Light and Power by the Ark of All.